Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari, and today I have a really fun vlog for you. I'm gonna get a bunch of my Halloween reading done, and I'm so excited to get through as many books as I can in the next couple of days. I'll also be going to Disneyland Paris, which if you don't know, I live in Paris, so Disneyland is super accessible for me, and I love going to Disneyland anytime, but especially at Halloween time, because French people, they don't really celebrate Halloween, which every year is super depressing for me because I'm so used to living in the US. You know, my entire childhood I was in the US growing up celebrating Halloween, walking down the street, seeing all these Halloween decorations every single day, all the Halloween stuff in every single store. Like, that is my favorite thing in the whole world. But that just doesn't exist in France, and it's super sad every single year for me, so I have to create my own Halloween ambiance on my own. But the exception to all this non-Halloween ambiance in France is Disneyland, because obviously it's American. So every October I make it a point to go to Disneyland to get my little piece of American Halloween, because really that's the best place to celebrate Halloween in France. So yeah, I'll be taking you to Disneyland with me to celebrate Halloween the American way in France, but I'm also going to make a point to get through as many spooky books as I can, so I'm going to show you all the books that I'm thinking about getting to. So as you can see, I have lots of books that I'm hoping to get to. I'm going to tell you what they are. First, we have the new release from Iain Reid. This just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's called We Spread. Then we have one from Grady Hendrix called Horrorstor. Next, we have this absolutely beautiful book, and it's Slewfoot by Brom. And another beautiful book that if you've been here before, you've probably heard me talk about this book, and that's My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. Then we have The Melancholy Death of Oyster by Tim Burton. And the last book that I know I'll definitely be reading from, even though it's not spooky, I'm just reading this alongside all of my October reads, is A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin. This is the fourth book in the Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire book series, so I know for sure I'm going to be sprinkling chapters of this throughout these next couple of days as well, even though it's not spooky, but I'm loving this book. So here's my little stack of things I'm hoping to get to. I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to finish A Feast for Crows, but I am going to be dipping into it. But the other ones I'm hoping to get to, almost all of them at least. We'll see how it goes. So stick around if you're interested in these books and you'll see which ones I get to and all of my thoughts on them. I think I'm going to start with Horrorstor because I think this is the most popular among all the ones that I have on my list. I've definitely heard a lot about this book, especially every Halloween. I feel like people read this the most. So this is going to be my Halloween that I finally read Horrorstor. So if you don't know what Horrorstor is about, basically it's a haunted IKEA. Being in a haunted IKEA sounds absolutely terrifying because if you've been to one before, you know that it's basically impossible to get out without getting lost once. They purposely make it so you're just constantly spiraling, seeing new products so that you buy more and more, and they make it really hard to get out on purpose. So imagining being in a haunted IKEA, that sounds absolutely terrifying. I love that the format of this book looks like an IKEA catalog, and even on the inside it has like products. Like the beginning of every chapter opens with a product, and even at the beginning there's like this order form as if you're going to order some furniture. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this and seeing what all the hype is about. Let's get started on our Halloween reading. I've gotten through a good portion of Horrorstor, and it's okay so far. I mean, it's fine. It's definitely suspenseful. I can feel the suspense, and it's more like fun horror than like terrifying horror. I've definitely been more scared reading a book than this. This feels kind of like a cheesy Halloween movie almost. And that's coming from someone who gets scared really easily. Like, I feel like this could be a not so scary Halloween movie. Now, maybe it would be scarier if it was on the screen. Like, I can't watch scary movies, but I can read scary books. But something about it just feels like a corny Halloween movie. In my mind, I keep comparing it to House of Leaves, because in House of Leaves it's just this like dread feeling, and you just feel like something is always about to happen and you just dread what's going to happen. But it's so well done, you just feel it constantly and it feels so real. Whereas here, like, you feel the dread, but it feels like I mean, it's fine if the bad thing happens. I don't really care too much, like, whatever. I don't know, and I'm really sad about that. I really wanted to love this, but so far I'm just kind of okay, I'm along for the ride, I guess. It is a pretty quick read though, so I'm not going to give you another update until I finish, I think, but I'll let you know what I think in the end. I really hope it redeems itself, and I don't think it's just cheesy the whole time. Alright, so I just finished Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. So I don't think before when I gave you an update, I really gave you a plot summary. I mean, at the very beginning, I said that this is like a haunted IKEA, but I'm going to give you a little bit more details. So in reality, this isn't really IKEA. It's kind of like a knockoff IKEA. Like they recognize IKEA in the story and they say that this store is worse than IKEA. Like it's cheaper than IKEA. The quality is worse than IKEA. So it's kind of like meta that they even recognize IKEA in existence because they're trying to be IKEA as well. So the main character in the story is Amy, and she works at this IKEA knockoff store called Oyster. And the whole story takes place over one working day. Well, it even extends past the working day, but I'll get to that in a second. So at the beginning of this working day, all the workers arrive at this IKEA-like store Oyster. And for the past few weeks, when they arrive at work, there's like destruction everywhere. Like they keep finding like disgusting things on like the setup couches, you know, and like trash in the beds and like all these horrible things that people are like apparently breaking in at night and vandalizing the store. And so the manager of the store wants to figure out what is happening at night. So he enlists two of the workers to stay with him that night and basically like apprehend whoever is vandalizing the store at night. So the manager Basil asks Amy, our main character, and then this other woman, Ruth Ann, to stay with him, and they're going to like patrol the store at night. During the day before they have to stay for this late night shift, we are introduced to some other characters. For example, Trinity, who believes in ghosts, and she feels like there's this like presence in the store and she keeps bothering people like, do you feel some kind of paranormal activity here? And then this guy who's trying to impress her, Matt, kind of goes along with her and makes her think like, yeah, I feel like there's paranormal activity happening in this store. So anyway, those are like the main characters of the story. So the story really begins once the store closes and this like late night shift begins between Basil, Amy, and Ruth Ann. And things start to get weirder and weirder. And for a while, you really don't know if what's happening is supernatural or like real people. And so I really enjoyed that part when you're really not sure, is it supernatural? Is it real? Is it a mix of both? You really have no idea. Like I enjoyed that part. But then once that question was answered, that's when things started to go downhill for me. So as I said in my little update, I felt like this was a cheesy Halloween movie. And you know, maybe you're into that. People love cheesy things. So if you love a good cheesy Halloween movie, this is your book. Like you're definitely going to enjoy it. But personally, this just wasn't for me. I was expecting something way more creepy and spooky. Like I said before, I referenced House of Leaves. Like that's what I was looking for. This like dread that intensifies and intensifies. That's what I was hoping for, and I did not get it. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to give this one 3 stars. I mean, like I said, it was fine for the first, I don't know what percent that would be, maybe like 30% of the story. But then after that, it kind of just went downhill for me. But like I said before, if you love cheesy Halloween movies, you're going to love this. You should definitely pick it up. The last thing I want to say is that I feel like there were 2 themes that were really shoved down your throat, which I don't like when it's so obvious that the author is trying to say something to make a commentary on it. I like it better when it's more subtle. So the first one was consumerism. So obviously with IKEA, it's obvious that they're trying to sell you more and more and more. And I feel like Grady Hendrix was trying to make a commentary about that, about how negative that is. And the second theme that I feel like was really forced in your face was about like hustle culture and like working too much, which I mean, that's fine. Those are 2 excellent themes to be exploring, but I feel like it was just too obvious and too in your face for me to enjoy it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. So that's all the Halloween reading that I'm going to be doing today, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow when I pick up something else. So this morning I started reading We Spread by Iain Reid, and it's only like 258 pages, I think. So it's already not very long. And on top of that, each paragraph and each line of speech is divided like into a new paragraph, like a new line of text. So it's super spaced out. So this is a really, really fast read. So this morning I read for like just under 2 hours, I think. And I'm already on page 201. I totally could have kept going and finished this in one sitting, but I had to get up and do a couple things. But now I have time to sit down and finish it, and I wanted to give you a little update to tell you what this is even about before I finish it and give you my final thoughts. So We Spread follows this older woman named Penny, and at the beginning of the story, we're following her living in her apartment all alone because her husband, who was an artist, has died, and so she's been living by herself for a good few years now. But she's getting pretty old, and her apartment is in not good condition. Like all of her stuff is just strewn everywhere. It's not a comfortable place for her to even be living. And it's actually even really dangerous because she ends up hurting herself and like hitting her head. So like that's the stage in life that she's in. Like it's too dangerous for her to even live by herself. And through all the things that she's telling us, we understand that she's starting to like lose her memory and starting to not remember things exactly how they were. And she even tells us the same thing a few times as if she forgot that she told us already. So already from the beginning, we understand that she's not really the most reliable narrator because she doesn't even remember when she's already told us something. And there's other instances where she doesn't remember doing something and she like finds something that she wrote, but she doesn't even remember that she wrote it. So that's our main character, Penny. And her husband, who has died a few years before this, he was an artist. He was a very serious artist, and Penny is an artist too. But she never liked to show off her artwork, whereas her husband was really into showing off his artwork and became really famous. And, like, people became really big fans of him and, like, even studied him at school and stuff. And he was always really critical of her and her art. And I don't think the next thing I'm going to say is a spoiler at all, because it is on the back of the book, but I know a lot of people don't want to know too much. Like, even sometimes they think that the back of the book is spoiling it. So if you don't want to know any more about the book, that you're intrigued, you want to read it, you're already convinced, I'm going to put on the screen that there's a mild spoiler happening, and then when it goes away, you can come back. So like I said, Penny's been living by herself, and it's getting pretty dangerous. Like, she even hurts her head at one point. And so basically her caretaker slash landlord decides that it's time for her to be put into, like, an older person care facility because it's too dangerous for her to be living by herself. So he takes her to this long care living facility, and he tells her, like, you know, you and your husband planned for you to come here. You planned that when you were too old to be living by yourself that you would come here. And she's like, I don't remember planning that at all, but okay, I guess. So Penny starts to settle into this home, and there's only 3 other old people living in this house, and then 2 people that take care of them. And Penny's, like, sleeping better than she's ever slept before, and she's having these delicious meals, whereas at home when she was by herself, she ate, like, toast and soup, whereas now she's eating really delicious meals. So at the beginning, everything is really nice for her. But then as days start to pass, she starts to feel like something's just not right at this place. But then she starts to accept that her memory isn't what it used to be, so maybe her memory is just playing tricks on her, and everything is fine, and she's just being paranoid. So everything I just said is on the back of the book, so it's technically not a spoiler, and hopefully it gave you a little bit more information to see if this is something that you would be interested in reading. So up until this point, I only have like 60 pages left. I'm really enjoying this. It's really making me feel uncomfortable. Like, everything is really drawn out to make you feel the unease and the dread and the uncomfortable feeling that Penny is having. And also, like I said before, this is a really fast read, so it's always just really gratifying to read something that you can just speed through and enjoy. I loved Iain Reid's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's one of my favorite, like, horror slash thriller, psychological thriller that I've ever read, and I'm hoping that this lives up to that in the end, that at the end that there's this big twist and I just fall in love with this book. That would make me so happy to have something on the same level as I'm Thinking of Ending Things. So with all that being said, let's jump back in. I'm gonna finish this book and I'm so excited. Alright, I just finished We Spread and I don't know what to think. I think maybe my expectations were too high because, like I said before, I love I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and the ending is so shocking and surprising, and I love the ending, and it just made me stare at the wall for like 5 minutes after I finished it. So I was kind of expecting that for We Spread, and I guess I did get kind of like a look away moment, like what just happened, but not in a good way. More of a, wow, that was kind of a letdown. I think I'm gonna have to think about the ending and see how I feel about it in like a day or two, because right now I'm a little bit let down, but maybe after I sit on it for a little bit I might like it more. I don't know, I hope so. But my initial reaction is I'm a little bit disappointed, even though I did like the whole book up until the ending. Like I said, I think my expectations were just too high, and maybe if I had never read Iain Reid before, maybe I would have liked it more. But if we just forget about the ending, I loved the whole book leading up to it. I thought it was really suspenseful, and like I said before, the fact that there's an unreliable narrator, I love that. I think that that's so fun and really adds to the suspense. The acknowledgements at the end were kind of funny. I'm not going to say what he says in the acknowledgements, but based on what the story's about and then reading the acknowledgements, it's kind of surprising. It's kind of like almost an insult. I mean, if you've read this book and then you read the acknowledgments, you'll know what I mean, but I kind of feel like it's almost insulting to what he's trying to acknowledge. I don't know. But anyway, overall, I did like this book. I think maybe I'll give it a 4 stars, but I wanted it to be a 5 star so bad. So it's only 3 o'clock. It only took me like 2.5 or maybe just under 3 hours to read all of We Spread. So I think I'm going to pick up something else, and I think I'm going to go for The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy by Tim Burton. This is basically just a collection of short stories and almost like poems. Like, they're so short. Like, not even really like short stories necessarily, but kind of like long poems almost from Tim Burton, and it's illustrated. And so I think I'm going to get through this pretty quickly because already it's pretty short, and the poems inside are very short themselves as well. I love Tim Burton. I mean, obviously I have so much Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. It's not Halloween without Nightmare Before Christmas. And I just love Tim Burton movies. I mean, I watch Frankenweenie every Halloween, and it just makes me so happy, but also very, very sad. I always cry my freaking eyes out watching that. I watch it with my dogs, and I just cry and cry and cry, but it's a good kind of cry. The movie is just a really good depiction of how much we love our dogs. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy, and I'll give you an update once I'm finished. Alright, so that took maybe 20 minutes to read, maybe 15 minutes, I don't know, not very long. Because like I said, the short stories are basically like poems, and not even long poems. I was expecting them to be longer than they were. Like, some of them were like 2 lines long. This one, Stick Boy's Festive Season, it's literally 2 lines. Stick Boy noticed that his Christmas tree looked healthier than he did. That's it. That's the story. But other ones are longer. For example, the titular one, The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy, that one's a few pages long. And it makes sense why that one's the titular story, because personally I like that one the best. I thought it was really funny. And these stories are so typically Tim Burton. Like, the rhyming is very Tim Burton, you know, like if you've ever watched The Nightmare Before Christmas, like all the songs, the rhymes that they have. I mean, it makes sense that that's his style and that's what he uses in this book. And also just like the creepy illustrations are obviously very Tim Burton, and I really enjoyed it. Something that I really love about Tim Burton is that there's always a dog in his stories. Like I mentioned before, Frankenweenie, which I love so much, so that's about a dog. And then in The Nightmare Before Christmas, obviously there's Zero, who's a ghost dog. And in Corpse Bride, there's Scraps, which is like a skeleton dog. And in this book, there's this mummy dog. The story is about a mummy boy and he finds a mummy dog. I just think that that's so fun. I love that Tim Burton is such a big dog fan. And I said this when I hauled this book, which was in my Parisian Spooky Day vlog, which I'll link down below if you're interested in watching me go have a spooky day in Paris. But this little girl, she looks like one of the girls in Frankenweenie. She's like the weird girl with the cat, and she gives Victor, the main character, her cat's poop because she thinks it's like a prophecy to him that something bad's gonna happen. She's a weird girl, and she looks just like this, so you can kind of see the inspiration for this character in Frankenweenie in this book. Anyway, like I said, this didn't take very long to read at all, and if you're a Tim Burton fan, I would definitely recommend. This will be really fun to read every Halloween. Actually, what I thought was interesting is that there's more Christmas stories in here than Halloween stories. There's literally one time where he mentions Halloween and he mentions Christmas maybe like 5 or 6 times. Like, there's that many Christmas stories. So it's kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas, where people debate, is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween or a Christmas movie? Obviously, personally, I think it's a Halloween movie. It's kind of the same theme in here. Is like, is this a Halloween book or a Christmas book? But all that really means is that you can enjoy this for longer periods of time throughout the year. So, I mean, that's a positive. So yeah, if you're a Tim Burton fan, I would definitely recommend this. I'm gonna give this 4 stars, I think, and not 5 stars just because I wish it was longer. Like, it didn't take me very long to read it all. I wish there were even more stories, or if the stories were longer or something like that. I just wanted more because I loved it so much. I mean, maybe I shouldn't hold it against the book that it's not longer, because I did enjoy what there was. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna have to think about it. But right now, another 4 star. Hey guys, so it's the next day. I hope you enjoyed our little day at Disneyland Paris. It was really fun. Disney is the best place to celebrate Halloween in France because really the French don't celebrate Halloween really at all, which is really depressing as an American. Like, Halloween is super important to me. And I just love going there anyway because the rides are so fun. My favorite ride is definitely Tower of Terror, and then probably Space Mountain, and then the Haunted Mansion. But at Disneyland Paris, they call it Phantom Manor and not Haunted Mansion, but it's the same thing. Anyway, I love going to Disney. It's like a little piece of the US and France. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that little fun day of Halloween festivities at Disneyland Paris. As you can see, I'm wearing my new shirt that I bought yesterday, except that this material that this shirt is, it's kind of like velvet almost, and it's the worst fabric to have on a shirt if you have animals because my dog's fur is getting stuck all over it, so that's not very practical, but it is really cute. I love the purple and I love the pink, and it's all glittery too, which I love. So yeah, I couldn't pass this up yesterday. I thought it was so cute. So just a little reading update on my way to and from Disneyland, and while I was waiting in line for some rides, I was reading on my Kindle, which I always take with me when I go to Disney because it's not practical at all to fit a book in that tiny little Belle backpack that I have. And amidst all my spooky season reading, I am still continuing in the Game of Thrones book series. It's actually called A Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm in book 4 right now. It's called A Feast for Crows. So this is actually what I had on my Kindle. I didn't want to carry around this big book like I said. So yeah, yesterday I got a big chunk of reading done for A Feast of Crows, which I'm loving, no surprise. And what's funny is I actually read a spoiler for House of the Dragon in this book because I had no idea I'd be reading about House of the Dragon like timeline stuff. But in this book, they talk about Kristen Cole. Just yesterday, in 2 of the points of view that I read, they reference Kristen Cole, which is absolutely crazy. And I'm so glad that I've seen House of the Dragon to be able to appreciate those references and to understand who they're even talking about. Like, it really completed the reading experience for me. And also it helps me follow more what this story is trying to say because I have the reference of who Kristen Cole is. I haven't read Fire and Blood, which is what House of the Dragon is based on, and I don't want to read it because I just want to be surprised by the show and love the show because I watched Game of Thrones before I read the book series, and so that's what I want to do again. I want to watch House of the Dragon before I read Fire and Blood. But I feel like since George R.R. Martin wrote these before he knew he was going to write Fire and Blood, I'm definitely going to get spoiled what happens. But I'm not going to wait to finish A Feast for Crows and then the 5th book, A Dance with Dragons, until House of the Dragon is over. Like, there's no way because there's going to be like 4 seasons of House of the Dragon. I'm not waiting to read these that long. So I've just come to accept that I'm probably going to be spoiled for House of the Dragon through these books. And that's fine, I guess. So yeah, that's my little reading update from yesterday. I checked on my Kindle what page I ended up on and then got into the book to see what page it is. And I'm on page 306 out of just over 1,000 pages. So I'm only like not even a third of the way into this yet, but like I said, I'm loving it. I'm devouring this series, and I feel like between reading this book series the last couple of months and watching House of the Dragon, which I just watched the finale and it was so freaking good, I feel like I live in Westeros at this point, which is not a bad thing because I'm seriously like obsessed with Westeros and everything A Song of Ice and Fire. I think about it like all the time. And I actually haven't been reading that many spooky season books because I've been so enthralled by A Song of Ice and Fire that I just want to get through these books as quickly as possible because I'm freaking loving it. I actually literally just had this book delivered. It was just released this week. It's called The Rise of the Dragon, an illustrated history of the Targaryen dynasty, volume 1. So this is kind of like an illustrated Fire and Blood. It doesn't have as much information in it as Fire and Blood, and it's not written from a maester's perspective, but there's like 175 illustrations or something in this, and it's absolutely beautiful. This book is stunning. It's such a heavy book. Like, it's a beautiful coffee table book if you're a Song of Ice and Fire fan. I would definitely recommend. This is the UK cover. The American cover has like a dragon on the cover. I'll put a picture of it here so you can see. Personally, I like this one better, even though it is green, and I'm not team green as of right now. I'm team black, but I am open for that to change in the future. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen, so I don't know. Maybe I'll go against team black and become team green. I don't know. But I put a little post-it note in this book where I need to stop reading when I read this because then it will definitely be spoilers. Because like I said, for A Feast for Crows, maybe I'll be spoiled. I don't know for sure, but here I definitely would be spoiled about what happens after season 1 of House of the Dragon. So I put this here and I know I can't read past it, which is unfortunate because that means I can only read like half of this book. But I am really looking forward to reading the first half of this book. So I'm curious if you all have been watching House of the Dragon. Have you been watching it? What did you think? What was your favorite episode? Are you team green? Are you team black? Who's your favorite character? Who's your favorite villain? Who's your favorite dragon? Anything about House of the Dragon, put it in the comments. I would love to talk with you about House of the Dragon because it's literally all I can think about. I want to talk about it with literally everyone and anyone. So anything you have to say about House of the Dragon, put it in the comments. I want to talk to you about it. Just don't spoil anything for after season 1 for me, please. And to get back to the spooky season reading, I'm about to to pick up My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. If you've watched my last few videos, you'll know that I've been obsessed with this book and have been really looking forward to reading it. It's an adult graphic novel of a little girl who's writing in her journal, and she's trying to solve the murder of her upstairs neighbor. The art is absolutely stunning. I've never seen such beautiful art in a graphic novel before. Again, speaking of beautiful books with The Rise of the Dragon, this is another absolutely beautiful book, and it's a heavy-duty, sturdy-ass book. So this is going to be my next spooky read, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hope I love it. Alright, so I just finished My Favorite Thing is Monsters, and I love this. Not only is this an absolutely stunning graphic novel, the art is seriously One of the most beautiful graphic novels I've ever seen, but the story was way more complex than I was expecting. So like I told you before, all I knew about this was that it followed a 10-year-old girl, and she tries to solve the murder of her upstairs neighbor, who is this older woman. But this story is so much more complex than that, and it has some pretty heavy themes, so just know that going into it. If you need to check anything out, then I would suggest that you do that, because some of the themes are a lot darker than I was expecting. I thought it was just gonna be this lighthearted story of a 10-year-old little girl, but it was way deeper than that and way more complex and, like I said, more dark, and I'm so happy about that. That made me love it even more. I don't want to get into what those themes are necessarily, because that would get into spoiler territory, but just know that this is so much more than just a 10-year-old girl scribbling in her journal trying to solve a murder. So in the end, I'm going to give this 5 stars. And with that, that's going to be the end of this reading vlog. So first I read Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix, then I read We Spread by Iain Reid, then The Melancholy Death of Oyster by Tim Burton, and finally My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. But I also got through more of A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin. I didn't end up getting to Slewfoot by Brom, but I think I'm going to save this to read on Halloween day, so I'll make sure that I give you a review for this in a future recent reads video. But I am really looking forward to it, because I mean, that cover is absolutely stunning. So I hope in this vlog that you found something that's interesting to you and that you would like to pick up and read. Even if it's not necessarily for spooky season, it's still fun to read scary books the rest of the year as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to this point, I really appreciate it. Please like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you back. And I hope that you have a really happy Halloween and that you've been really enjoying what you've been reading. And I'll talk to you again next time. Bye!